Hello, Packers fans. Welcome to the Green 19 podcast. Green Bay Packers are about to play the San Francisco 49ers in the divisional round of the NFC playoffs. My name is JR Radcliffe. I am joined once again by PackersNews.com scribes Tom Silverstein and Ryan Wood. We're breaking down this matchup against the top seed in the NFC on Saturday night. It's going to be very difficult, very big challenge facing the Packers. Although we could have said the same thing about Dallas, and here Green Bay is the first number 7 seed in the format, which is 4 years old, to advance into this round of the playoffs. And Ryan, I'm going to start with you because you wrote a little bit about the Packers' kind of big picture plight and how it compares to what they went through a couple of years ago when San Francisco came to Lambeau Field and upset the Packers. You touched a little bit on the matchup between Kyle Shanahan and Matt LaFleur. They're friends. They go back a ways. They've squared off with each other. The Packers have won a couple times against Kyle Shanahan with Matt LaFleur as head coach, but they've also lost a couple times in the playoffs, and those are kind of the big ones. I guess from what you know, I'd be interested to know just kind of in a general sense for those who maybe aren't as familiar with the Shanahan offense and how Matt LaFleur riffs on that. What are, I guess, the hallmarks of this offense? What makes Kyle Shanahan's design so difficult? And what are the things Matt LaFleur has adopted, and also maybe the things that he has not adopted that, you know, that from this guy that you can kind of consider his mentor, if maybe that's too strong, but it's a really good friend.
It's the same offense. I mean, almost identical in scheme. And what that means, a lot of multiple. You're not going to see very different than the Sean McVay offense with the Rams, where it's so much 11 personnel. Kyle Shanahan and Matt LaFleur love tight ends. They want to go with sub-package. They want to mix things up. Another big similarity, identical, pre-snap motioning. And that's something that's a hallmark in McVay and Mike McDaniel's offense as well. But they have a lot of motion that they build plays off of. They riff off that motion and just kind of progress that throughout the game. But, you know, you look at the similarities now in their personnel. I asked Jaden Reed today, Deebo Samuel, a guy that, you know, you could maybe model some things off of. And he's like, yeah, I've been watching him, studying his film since college, you know. Matt LaFleur finally has that Deebo Samuel type slot guy that can not only operate in slot, run routes, be a productive receiver, but you can hand the ball off to. It can kind of make those pre-snap motions even more viable as a direct play. The big difference, well, one, the personnel in the 49ers offense has been doing this a lot longer than the Packers personnel, right? This is the beginning for the Packers. Also, there's no Kyle Juszczyk in this Packers offense. The Packers, Matt LaFleur, he wanted Josiah DeGuara when they drafted him in the third round to be their Kyle Juszczyk, and it hasn't happened. So that fullback role that is very prevalent with Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers is absent in this offense. They try to do what they can with DeGuara, but he's not – Kyle Juszczyk's the best fullback in the league. So that's the big difference. But everything else is almost across the board. You look at the tight ends now, the slot guy, it's very similar, very compatible.
Yeah, Tom, Kyle Juszczyk is as good as H-back as there is in the business, as Ryan said. I don't know if LaFleur can use the tight ends maybe in some – like Tucker Kraft in that role, since Josiah DeGuara has kind of not emerged as that player. Having the two tight ends, I feel like, makes things a little more flexible for them. Obviously, neither one of these guys, both rookies, are as good as George Kittle or even Juszczyk. Or, you know, I think across the board, you would say the 49ers have the better offensive weapons. Having those tight ends, though, is that something now that they're both healthy? Because, now that Luke Musgrave is back to seemingly full speed, is that something that the Packers can really use to their advantage here? That this is maybe the thing that they've been missing, for, I guess, lack of a better term, because the offense has been good the last few games, but this is the piece that's going to allow them to keep it close with the 49ers.
Yeah, I think it's become more part of their offense. I think, in Matt LaFleur's traditional offense, the tight ends play a big role. And the reason is you can play two tight ends and you essentially have max protection. You have 7 guys who can pass protect, but 2 of those guys can pass protect for just a second, chip the ends and then go out for passes. And then all of a sudden you got a 5-man route. And so you have 5 guys going out. So you get the both the best of both worlds in that sense. And I think that's been the biggest difference in their offense. It also allows you to run a lot of play action stuff. It allows you, they use Tucker Kraft in motion on these cross sift blocks, which is, when the tight end goes across the formation and everybody blocks to the right and he blocks to the left and he takes the end out. They did that to Micah Parsons. So you can do that kind of stuff. They don't need a fullback as much as they really need two guys who can catch the ball. They haven't had that for a long time. And I think that threat is part of what's made their offense so good.
Of course, it's also easy to point out that the Matt LaFleur and Kyle Shanahan are not going head-to-head. They're going against each other's defensive coordinators. And this 49ers offense, Ryan, is genuinely, by some metrics, one of the 10 best ever, or at least since the 80s, when some more advanced metrics have been kept track of. They just have so many weapons. And as you look back at that 2021 team, that team was still really good on offense, not this level. The Packers did hold that team in check. They did, they held them to 13 points, and the only touchdown came on a blocked punt. So obviously the Packers had some success on defense in that playoff game a couple years ago. So much has changed, but but the coaching staffs are the same. So do you think that you've identified, or you could see how this Packers defense can slow down this team, which since then has added Brock Purdy at quarterback, Christian McCaffrey at running back, two obviously the biggest offensive weapons this team has. Do you see a way where the Packers can actually slow this thing down?
Well, you hit it right there. The difference is that they're not facing Jimmy Garoppolo this week. That's a huge difference.
And it's 8 passes.
Yeah, it's a big difference. I think what stands out about this game to me, don't get this twisted. The 49ers are and should be the favorite. It would surprise no one if they won. But this is a bad matchup for the 49ers traditionally. And what I mean by that, it was the same thing 2 years ago, but it goes beyond Packers and 49ers. Time and time again, year after year, we see that team that shuts down maybe the last game of the regular season because they've got the 1 seed wrapped up. They come off the bye, and they face that underdog team that's been in playoff mode, just totally tunnel vision. You got to win this week, then win this week, then win this week to keep your season alive like the Packers have. And it can make for a rocky beginning. Well, here's what we know about Matt LaFleur. They're going to call tails, and if it's tails, he's going to take the ball. If they can score on that opening drive like they did in Dallas, get a 7-0 lead, that makes such a big difference compared to falling behind. And then at that point, the 49ers can ride Christian McCaffrey the rest of the way. You want to take Christian McCaffrey out. I'm not sure how this Packers defense does that unless you get the lead. And suddenly that doesn't quite nullify the running game, but it sure dampens what they can do as opposed to the 49ers having an early lead and being able to ride that running game. The beginning of this game is so important in terms of setting the tone. But when you look at it, this is a game that maybe they can jump out to a lead because the 49ers might be a little rusty at the start. And the Packers, we know they're red hot right now, and a lot of that's due to they've been in this playoff mentality for a month now. They don't win in Carolina. They don't win in Minnesota. They're not here. So the start of this game to me is very important. It sets the tone for what they can maybe do defensively.
Tom, I look at the Packers defense and I feel like what the 49ers will be able to do, because I just have such faith in their coaching, is that they will pick on the weak link. Whatever it is on the Packers defense, the 49ers will go after it. And I don't want to say outright that I think the linebacker play is maybe that spot to hit, but I think this is a pretty big game again for Quay Walker and Devondre Campbell. Those are guys who are going to have to be able to stop Christian McCaffrey on the second level, first of all, before his 4-yard runs become 12, 15-yard runs. And, Brock Purdy is really good. Like he gets dinged as being a system quarterback, but for number one, I think he's a better deep thrower than people think. And number two, he's going to be able to find, Deebo Samuel over the middle. And that's going to be, that's always a danger for just tons of yards after the catch. So do you see it as the linebackers have to step up, or is it that secondary that really has to step up, or is it the pass rush, I guess the answer is yes to all three, but the pass rush making it such a problem for San Francisco that it never even has to get to the second and third level. How would you look at what the Packers defense needs to do?
Well, I think the weakness for that offense, and there aren't very many, is every guy except for Trent Williams on the offensive line. So when the Packers played these guys years ago, or even in the NFC Championship game or divisional game here, the 49ers had a much more veteran, impressive offensive line. And now they've got some guys who are vulnerable. Trent Williams is the best left tackle in the game. And so, you don't count on beating him very often. But the other guys, they have to win. Kenny Clark has got to play probably his best game. And same with Devontae Wyatt and probably Preston Smith too. They've got to figure out how to, blow those guys up right at the line and botch everything up for McCaffrey. So, Purdy is going to get the ball out of his hands quickly. You're probably not going to get a chance to sack him much, but if you can get some pressure up the middle and you can at least, have some stalemates at the line of scrimmage, then you got a chance. And, if you go back to the Baltimore game and the Washington game, Baltimore picked off Purdy 4 times. They got their hands on some passes, but they were pretty relentless with their tackling. They didn't let too many breakouts. And then Washington just won up front and nearly probably should have beaten the 49ers. So that, to me, that's the only way the Packers slow down that offense is to win up front.
Tom, I'm going to come back to you because you wrote at PackersNews.com about the injury situation, about Jaire Alexander's availability. I mean, Kingsley Enagbari is another one. We know he's out, but that hurts the pass rush. And we wondered after the Dallas game who was going to take his spot, so to speak. And so I'd be curious to know if you feel like it's any different than what we said then. And Alexander's a big one. He has not practiced yet as we record this on Thursday. He obviously was able to play. It was a game time decision in Dallas, but this is ominous. He left that game with an injury. So what do we know about who's dinged up right now?
So Alexander was the only guy who missed practice, who's, expected to, or hopeful for playing on Saturday. I think Jaire Alexander will play. I think even if he's not 100%, he'll find a way to get out on the field. I mean, he's got to. They even if he's not 100%, they got to get him out on the field. Now, how long he'll last with that ankle, he could wind up twisting it again. But he's too important to what they do. And it's just another good player on the field. A.J. Dillon practiced, and there's a chance that he could be ready, although I don't see him having a very big role the way that Aaron Jones is playing. I think he would have a very small role, if at all. Other than that, they're in okay shape. Now, yeah, they got to make up for Kingsley Enagbari being down. They'll have Bretton Cox Jr. up. They liked him a lot. He's a marvelous athlete that they took a chance on. And, we'll see if he can give them some reps. But, mostly it's going to be a 3-man rotation with Van Ness, Gary, and Preston Smith. But Cox is going to have to play. There's no question about it. And we'll find out whether all these weeks on playing on the scout team have improved him.
All right, Ryan, let's go to the other side of the ball. I think the 49ers' strength on defense is their linebackers. It's pretty easy to identify. Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, probably the best linebacker combination in football. They obviously have a Bosa up front, so that's something to keep an eye on as well. They're obviously very good defense as well. They're a very well-rounded team. I wonder if you look at this offense and think, maybe this is a game where Jordan Love tests the cornerbacks a little more than he has. Right now he's become so expert at intermediate throws and finding guys open over the middle of the field. The routes guys are running seem to be working and getting guys open. But maybe this is the time for him to try something else, because they're going to have to pull out all the stops. And I wonder if this is the game where you maybe see some big time shots down the field to try and get some splash plays against a team that's going to be pretty stout most of the day.
Yeah, one, they need a running game. They need Aaron Jones to do what he's been doing, and it's going to be different this week because Aaron Jones has always owned the Cowboys, and the 49ers have always been Aaron Jones' kryptonite. I think 6 games he's played against him now, he's never had 100 rushing yards. So keeping him on pace of what he's been doing these past 4 games, that'd go a long way. But to your point, JR, about hitting shots down the field, Jordan, when I met with Matt LaFleur a day before the regular season finale against the Bears, he was very bullish on, in time, this deep accuracy with Jordan Love will develop. And we just saw that happen last week in Dallas. Jordan Love last week in Dallas, when targeting 20 yards or more downfield, was 4 for 5 with 126 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's a 158.3 rating. He had a perfect passer rating targeting 20 yards and more downfield. Now, a lot of those were wide open, but to his credit, when you got deeper developing routes, more is on the quarterback to be able to buy time in the pocket and often deliver when you're hurried or hit, because you're going to be holding the ball more. When he was hurried or hit, Jordan Love was 8 of 9 for 179 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 158.3 rating against the Cowboys. So those 2 areas, he's coming off his best performance in those 2 areas all season. And yeah, if he went out and did that again, that'd be awfully big.
Ryan, there was a really good question. I want to hear from both of you, but really good question that was asked this week that you guys, I believe, wrote about. Would you trade Love for Mahomes right now? Patrick Mahomes of the Chiefs. And I saw the question and I immediately was like, of course I would. Of course I would trade for Patrick Mahomes. And the more obviously there's a lot of angles to it. There's contracts. There's, the thought exercise is, do you want Jordan Love going forward versus Patrick Mahomes going forward? I'd be curious to know if you guys are willing to weigh in on that, because I still think you do want Mahomes, because you figure then that gives you the best chance to win a title in the next couple of years. But like, the more you think about this Packers team, they actually probably should be one of the Super Bowl teams, or one of the teams that you talk about as a Super Bowl contender next year. So I honestly don't know. I don't want to make it sound like, sometimes people say, oh, they'll keep the guy they have. And that sounds ridiculous because it's them versus a clear-cut superstar. But what would you say about that question? What did you guys write about that?
Yeah, no question. I would trade straight up Jordan Love for Patrick Mahomes. I don't care about cap ramifications. I don't care. If that's the trade on the table, I find a way to make it work. And yes, I make that trade. Because Patrick Mahomes is a 2-time MVP, a 2-time Super Bowl winner, and is only 28 years old, only 3 years older than Jordan Love. Patrick Mahomes is in a stratosphere in this league unto himself. He is the only guy with a chance to challenge Tom Brady's legacy. So that's a no-brainer to me. I think the much better question, and this is kind of where, I went with in this answer, it lends to who would I trade Jordan Love for at this point and not even think about it. And to me, there's only 3 guys. If I'm Brian Gutekunst and I can get Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, or Joe Burrow, I'm taking that trade. Everyone else, Lamar Jackson, he's had a better season this season than Jordan Love. He is already an MVP. He is only 26. He's only a year older than Jordan Love.
Oh my gosh!
So I have to wonder if Lamar Jackson's play style is going to hold up. To me, Jordan Love's play style, he doesn't take the kind of hits as he had. Lamar Jackson 800 rushing yards this season. That's great. What does that look like in a couple years? I don't know. Jordan Love, he's not taking those kind of hits. So I don't know that I trade Jordan Love for Lamar Jackson. I don't know that I don't trade him for Brock Purdy. I don't. Tua wasn't this until he had Tyreek Hill. And Jordan Love's got a lot of deep receiving options. He doesn't have Tyreek Hill. Justin Herbert, well, Jordan Love's already led the Packers further in the playoffs than Justin Herbert's ever led the Chargers. So I'm not making that trade. The only other guy out there, CJ Stroud, but I get, CJ Stroud has just had the best rookie season for any quarterback in NFL history. But I think if I'm the Packers and the Texans, I'd just rather keep a hold of my guy. I don't think the Texans are trading CJ Stroud for Jordan Love. I don't think the Packers are trading Jordan Love for CJ Stroud. They've had they've been enmeshed in their system. I think that that's kind of like an even trade. So I'm not making that trade either. It's just, I don't know what you think, Spoon, but to me it's Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow.
What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, ditto. I don't really have much to add to that. I think you summed it up pretty well. I would take Mahomes, and I agree. Those other three guys are the top guys in football. I've been waiting for Trevor Lawrence to kind of show who he is, but injuries have kind of slowed him down. And so, yeah, those three guys are the best in the game. And Jordan Love might get there. You never know. We'll see. But the one thing about Mahomes is he's played as a front runner. He's been challenged every single week for how many years now, since they won their first Super Bowl. And teams game plan for him, teams play their best against him. And that's what Jordan Love is going to face probably next year. Yeah. You're going to see a lot of defensive coordinators game plan for him. So that's the next step for him.
That's a remarkable testament to where they are, though, with Jordan Love. The fact that we agree on that, there's only three guys. I'm not saying he's top 5 in the league, but you could start to craft an argument, a credible argument, for him being top 5 in the league. And I'm with you, Spoon. He has to pass that next challenge. Year 2 for him is going to be big, so you can't just cement him in that until he gets to that point. But he's played over the last 2 months like a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. And both of us are looking at this as there's 3 guys, but other than that, I mean, there's no one else I'm trading him for. That's top 5 status. It's a remarkable testament not only to where this team was in October, where this quarterback was in October, but if you were to say going into the season that there's only 3 quarterbacks you wouldn't trade Jordan Love for in the league, and it's those 3 guys, that's wildly above any expectation that would have been set.
Yeah. In the small sample world that is the NFL, it's easy to get carried away. We are still talking about essentially a little over half a season where Jordan Love has been at this very elite level. And obviously there could be a little bit of regression in year 2, 3, or 4. This probably isn't completely sustainable to have only 1 interception over the last several games, but he also, he just did it on a playoff stage on the road. Like, that's pretty unflappable stuff. And it remains to be seen what he does against the best team in football, or best team in the NFC at least. But that it could be another compelling data point. Are we not saying Tom Clement's name enough? He's the guy who's kind of behind the scenes, who has helped Aaron Rodgers sort of rediscover his MVP form, and now has helped Jordan Love acclimate in a very rapid amount of time. Tom, I'll ask you that first. Like, should we be building the Tom Clement statue? Like, I feel like he's really been a big part of this.
Yeah, he's played a big role. Quarterbacks coaches always do. And, Clements has a track record. He had Favre, he had Rodgers, and now he's had Love. But to me, and I'm not taking anything away from him, I think he's been great for his fundamentals, for his training. But I think the head coach has as much or more influence on the quarterback, especially with, obviously when it's an offensive coach. Mm-hmm. Mike McCarthy had a ton of influence on Aaron Rodgers, and whether Aaron Rodgers wants to admit that or not, he did. And same way Mike Holmgren did with Brett Favre, and I think Matt LaFleur's had a huge influence on Jordan Love. That's what those guys are hired for, to coach quarterbacks. And as I said, I'm not taking anything away from Clements. I think, if you want a guy who is a stickler for fundamentals, a stickler for playing the position the way it should be played, he's the guy. You want him. But ultimately, it's the head coach who designs the offense, who figures out, what it is that the quarterback does well, who to put around him, how much to give him. So that's kind of my assessment of it.
I agree with everything Spoon just said, but to the whole projection base on Jordan Love and what we're saying about he's got to show it in year 2. There's no reason right now to think that he won't show it in year 2. It doesn't mean he will. We have to see it. But yeah, 21 touchdowns and 1 pick might not be sustainable all the time. Like every guy, even Patrick Mahomes, has some bad games here and there. And Jordan Love hasn't in a very long time. But it's also his first season. You don't expect the best product of any player at any position that you see to be in their first season starting. You expect that to be the foundation for what they build off of. So if you're to ask me right now, do I think that he'll pass that test next year? Yeah, because at this point, it's been 2 months. It's been half a season. That's a sample size that's more than just a flash in the pan. That's not a couple good games. Half a season's half a season, and it's the second half of his first season. So I think that there should be a lot of confidence, and that translates to, he's going to get paid this offseason. He should get paid this offseason. There shouldn't be a whole lot of residence and hesitancy to, go ahead and pay him this offseason because this is year 1, and he's passed with flying colors, and I would think there'd be confidence that he'll continue doing that.
Ryan, do you think I'm right that they're a Super Bowl or bust sort of team in 2024? Is that unfair expectations?
They're right back to where they were. Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was a rebuilding year going into this season. Spoon was ahead of me on that. He thought that this was a team that could compete, although Spoon, I don't know if at this point they've kind of blown even your expectations out of the water where you thought they'd be. But no, I thought this was purely a rebuilding year, and we'll see what they can, bring in for momentum this offseason going into 2024. Now, this is a team with Jordan Love, the offensive pieces around him. This is a team that is in another Super Bowl window, at the dawning of another Super Bowl window. Whether they win this week or not, they will be a short list consideration as a Super Bowl favorite next season, and it will probably be like that for a while now.
All right, well, we're getting close to the end here, and I know that we've, I guess, kind of danced around whether or not we think the Packers can actually pull this off, and I know that you guys will have your predictions in the paper and at PackersNews.com, but Tom, we all kind of thought, fortunately, my opinion was not published, so I do not have to bear the brunt of this, but we all thought the Cowboys were going to win, and I don't think it was really hard to come up with that. Maybe we thought it would be close or whatever. We certainly didn't see what happened. As wrong as we were about the Packers, is it possible that the consensus is wrong again, that we're missing just how good the Packers have gotten, even though I think it's pretty safe to argue the 49ers are a markedly better team than the Dallas Cowboys? What are the odds here, Tom, that this ends with an NFC Championship game appearance, which I cannot believe I'm saying out loud?
Well, the more I've studied the 49ers this week, the more my opinion has changed that they're not the super team that I thought they were. I mean, they are still the class of the NFC. And I think, they're favorites for a reason. And anybody who's taken them is not out of their mind. But I also think that there will be some opportunities. It's really going to be, a fine line that the Packers have to win some really important matchups. And if they can do it, I think they can win. I really do think they can win. I think San Francisco has this huge list of great names, particularly on defense. But I don't think they're quite as good as their names seem to indicate, on defense. I don't think Chase Young is the Chase Young who Washington had, 3-4 years ago. I don't think Nick Bosa is the same player he was. Still a really, really, really good player. But I don't know if he's the same. Eric Armstead could be a real problem up front, but he's coming back from an injury. Mm-hmm. I just think, a team that starts Oren Burks at linebacker, that there's some weaknesses there. I'm not saying Packers are going to just roll all over these guys, but I just don't think it's the super team that I thought they were. And I think with that in mind, the Packers do have a chance.
You were the more optimistic of the two, so you go ahead, give it the last word.
I get zero credit for this because at the end of the day, when the rubber hit the road, I chickened out and I picked the Cowboys last week.
You did, yes.
But I had this feeling all week last week, like every time I thought about the game, boy, Packers actually, I think they might win this game. I had that feeling. I couldn't shake it all week. Chickened out. I thought that there'd be a kick at the end. I thought I was very confident it'd be close. I'll tell you this, I didn't see 48-16 coming midway through the fourth quarter. Thought it'd be a close game, and I thought that a kick at the end from Anders Carlson might change it. But I had this feeling all week that the Packers were going to win that game. They did. I get zero credit for that. I picked the Cowboys. I haven't been able to shake this feeling all week. This is a bad matchup for the 49ers. And it's not just that 49ers-Packers thing. And it's not just what happened 2 years ago in the same role, the 49ers beating the Cowboys in the wild card round in Dallas and then going to Lambeau Field and beating the top-seeded Packers as a 6th seed. I grew up in Indiana. I was a huge Colts fan in my youth. Go check the 2005 AFC divisional round game between Colts and Steelers. Great Colts team. Steelers come into Indianapolis. They beat them. Fans will remember the 2011 divisional round game with the Packers and Giants. Time and time again, you see this type of matchup not go well for the favorite, and that's where the Packers are in position here. It's just an NFL thing. I'm picking the Packers to win, and the 49ers on paper are the better team. I'm picking the upset. This is an absolute upset if the Packers win, but the way things shake out here, it's not a good matchup for the 49ers. 49ers win. That's what is expected. That wouldn't be a surprise to anybody, obviously. But it shouldn't be a surprise if the Packers do actually win this game either.
All right, well, we will be there in Santa Clara, really, but San Francisco general area, I suppose, to watch this and write all about it. The next Green 19 podcast will probably be in your feeds on Sunday night. We'll have a little more information, a little more time to record after the late night Saturday. So don't expect to hear from us immediately the following morning, but we will be back in touch with you and let you know everything that we saw as the Packers take on the San Francisco 49ers, 7:15 p.m. Central Time on what is that, on NBC? I actually don't know what channel the Packers are on.
Fox.
It's on Fox. Very well, very well. We will again be there for that. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll catch you again very soon. Bye-bye.